if you can kind of see, this sponge here is a natural sea sponge. It's got some pretty cool design ability to it. One thing I noticed, you can always practice on the back side of these like I did on the first one I did, which was the last window. I do a lot of painting and drawing portraits and stuff, so I figured if I can paint and draw a portrait, I'll be able to paint some rock, right? But what I was going to say is that when I practiced, I noticed my bricks didn't have enough contrasting color, or my stone didn't have enough contrasting color. So I think it's important to do that. So what I do is I like to take some, I'll put some brown on here. I don't know if this is, yeah, it's just acrylic paint. You can kind of see what colors they are. And this stuff dries pretty quick, so you got to move. I'll put both colors on here. Then I'll come around and I'll just stamp out a brick or a stone. I'll pick some different colors. I'll do a brown one over here. And I'll go ahead and put a little bit of the couple of other little colors on it. Do one here. Okay, and I think that's about enough of this color. I'll go ahead and keep this color on the sponge, and I'm going to go right into just a straight yellow, or it's burnt umber or whatever it is. And I'll do some lighter stone looks here. I'll even take a little white and put in there with it on top of them. We'll need a few of those. If it's getting more brown looking, I'll just put white over the top of it. We'll do one big one here. And you notice I leave some white showing like that. And then I'm going to come in here and take some, I'm going to do a black one here. I'll put a little bit of blue in it because when I rub it out it starts looking gray. I've got to hurry. I'll do a straight brown one. And I'll do a blue and black one down over here. They look pretty cool. You notice I'm leaving plenty of white. I'll do a blue and black one here. Put a little white on it. I'll put a little white on the black over here too. Starts drying pretty quick. What do we got here? Alright, I kind of like that. Just make sure you get some variety of color. I think that's real important. Like this one's going to be kind of gray. This keystone here in the middle is just going to be very, very light. So I'm not going to put much on it. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and dark brown up the one next to it, I think. So it'll look, so I have plenty of contrast between that one. That goes in the water now. Don't worry about wringing it out. You don't have time to mess with it. These sponges here, you just start kind of checking, not too wet, not too dry on the sponges, just barely moist. And I start kind of patting first so I can kind of see about where they're at on color. And if it's drying fast, you got to start rubbing on it a little bit. I still got some of the black still wet on the grout. Anyway, you need to get this white out of it. So each individual one, you want to start rubbing them out a little bit, like this. It's drying pretty quick on me. The last ones I did was 40 degrees outside, so my light source is coming from the right. So I'm going to do this real quick, just make sure there's no paint there. I will, I'm taking it kind of easy here. I got a little water on this now. You don't want to take out all your highlight. I'm doing this, this is my light source is coming from the right. So I'm grabbing another clean sponge. So the edge of this will have a highlight like that. I think that'll probably work. And then of course it'll continue over on this side. I'm just doing it so I don't forget to do it. Just going to wipe it out so I don't have the paint there in a minute to deal with. Goes in the water. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and start wiping these out because I'm going to lose it if I don't. You can always paint it white and start back over if you want to. All I do is kind of rub this stuff out. There's a couple white areas. If it looks anything like a stone, just move on to the next one. Got a little extra paint there. There's plenty of paint on here, but it's not completely globbed on here. If it starts looking too much of a white look, I'll go ahead and just pat a little bit. That sponge is kind of wasted, so it's going to go in the water. Got a little. I just wrung this one out. It's got a little water on it. Easy does it at first. Kind of rub along. Now I'll go back over with the grout lines maybe just a little bit because I'm wiping some of them out. Start wiping too much out here. So I'll just go ahead and just pat it. That works too. You can kind of rub a little bit. That one got kind of messed up, so I'll come back to it. But here on this keystone here, that's what happens if you get too much water on it, but I'll show you how to fix that here in a second. This keystone here, I want it to kind of be a keystone for the middle of the window. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the one of these little sponges here. I'm going to put just a touch of the black right back in on top of it to help show some depth. It's going to have a sun shining on the top just like that. That doesn't have to be perfect either. It was going to come from over on this side. Kind of doing it backwards here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I just noticed if it's getting too dry on you, you can always just wet the sponge more. What I'm trying to do here is show that the light is coming from that side shining across the window. And I put a black grout line here. Wasn't supposed to. What's nice about that, you can just rub it right on off if you want to. I'm rubbing pretty hard here to clean off this paint. I like that. That looks pretty good. This one that I kind of messed up here with the brown, you can kind of see I'm just putting some more paint right on top of it to give it some highlight. You know, from 30-40 feet away it'll look fine. I'm going to go back into this black just a little bit, picking out where those places are there. Then I'm going to stamp kind of on top of them to muddle it just a little bit. And that should look like a nice keystone when I'm done. You can, if you want, to give it a little bit more depth. You got to keep cleaning your sponges sometimes. I might take out a little bit of the white here and there once it starts drying. But okay, I'm moving on now. And you can kind of tell this sponge is a little bit wetter, paint's a little drier. I'm rubbing pretty hard now on this. So it's pretty good once you rub it in. It starts working pretty good there actually. And that, you can kind of see how it's looking like stone already. Now since I got a yellow one over here, I'm going to rinse my sponge out. I don't care if anybody tells you it doesn't look like real stone. What do they know? They're not the artist, right? But anyway, once you get it all done, there's several steps to this, but this is the main. You kind of get the idea, the main one right now. I'll take a towel to squeeze out excess water if I got too much in the sponge, like right there. I'm padding it. If I like how it looks when I'm padding it, sometimes I'll just leave some of that stuff like that. Not every stone is, some of it's going to be smoother. And if you forget to do one like right there, just make it a different color. I'm going to go with the blues and brown, black, just kind of like that with it. Can be done pretty quickly actually. And then just pat it. You know, even that looks pretty decent. And then my light source is over here. I am going to have, this does go around the window. It will have it'll have black silicone to simulate grout around this side, but you can do this. So if anybody does look up there, it'll be more prevalent on the outside of the right hand piece of trim. And you can also come in here like this if you want to kind of make that keystone stand out. Some of these pieces can have a little bit of a highlight coming up the side. Nothing wrong with that. Sun's like, you know. I'll kind of look at it. Let me rinse out the sponge. Even when it's dry sometimes I'll come back in here with I'll take the sponge, squeeze it out in a dry towel. Gets rid of some of the water. I'm trying to put a highlight and get it just right. It's kind of nice to have it. Remembering this one here. Then I'll come in here. Maybe there's a little highlight on the side of that one. It's really not that big a deal. Maybe the sun's hitting this top edge just a tad here. Reflected light from somewhere. Alright, I'll stand back at this point and take a look at it. A little too detailed, I think, so I'm going to go right back over some of this. Maybe where the, just smudge it a little bit, but be careful, because you can take it all out and then you won't have it like there. I just messed it up. So what I'll do is, I still got some of that paint on the wax paper. I'll see, doesn't take much to put a little bit back in there. Just wipe gently at first. Depends on the moisture and how fast that paint dried. This one here needs to be smoothed out a little bit. Same way with that one. Now after I polyurethane this, I'll rough the polyurethane up a little bit. Say that looks pretty cool there. I'll just kind of look at a few spots, and like that one's a little too, take a little black. Sometimes it's good to put a little black in some of the browner ones to show some more depth. It's going to be viewed from a long ways off. I'm touching pretty lightly now when I do this. Okay. You can zoom in on that if you want. That's not bad. While I have it here, I'll probably go ahead, since I'm happy with it, I'll go ahead. I know it's run a little bit long, but it's good to kind of see the whole process. I got a little black paint here. I'm going to go ahead and make sure my grout lines are there. And I'm going to need some paint. Now, if you don't seal this with exterior polyurethane, you won't have a prayer of it lasting. So make sure you do that. A couple good coats. Make sure my grout lines are nice and dark in the middle. I know Stone Mural, if you enter that in on YouTube, that guy does some wonderful work. He uses an airbrush, but I didn't have an airbrush, so I kind of like this here because it's not like we're painting an entire wall anyway. You notice I'm going to go ahead and put a few lines in there. I do want the center of the grout to be black. Keep in mind that highlight will, on the right hand side there, the sun, the highlight should follow that shadow too, so it should be lighter than the rest of it. So I shouldn't have painted it. That's okay. And see how that leaves that little line on there? That's okay. I can take a little sandpaper to some of that too. Okay. I'll get another sponge because I made this all black over here. I did want that kind of light. I might sand some of that grout line off there. But anyway, I'll go ahead and finish this up real quick. Make sure these grout lines are dark. If I don't like the shape of the brick, I can kind of, with a stone, I'll kind of shape it a little bit now too. If it's too narrow, I'll kind of come in here and put some lines in it. Nothing wrong with this at all. It'll look like stone. But it's important to switch up the color. In my opinion, keep the grout lines wide enough, because if you look at some stone, the grout lines are 10 times wider than this. This will have a black silicone around the window edge anyway. Anyway, that looks pretty good. It's nothing wrong with throw a few little lines in here too, like you've got a stone there. Nothing wrong with that. Do a little bit of that, and sometimes I'll put some little lines across here too. I'll blend out some of that other paint because you want it to have to, you know, to show some depth, and so you don't want to get too carried away. But nothing wrong with doing it. That'll really make it pop. But anyway, I'm making sure I didn't miss no grout lines. Okay, that's about it. Then we'll get set up and do another one on the straight pieces.